Good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Arundathi Ramanan and here are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Sebi makes it incumbent on listed companies to clarify on market rumors. Top 100 companies must verify, deny, confirm or clarify on rumors from October this year. Companies also need to disclose material information or event within 30 minutes of the board meeting, and any material information that is outside of a board meet must be disclosed within 12 hours. Sebi moves to safeguard mutual fund investors after recent scandals at Franklin Templeton and Axis Mutual Fund, amends the rules to make the board of asset management companies explicitly responsible for protecting investors, also mandates the boards of AMCs to form a unit holder protection committee. We don't want Abhimanyus in the mutual fund ecosystem, says Sebi chairperson Madhvi Puri Butch. The board gives the original sponsor of an AMC the flexibility to voluntarily disassociate itself from the mutual fund without hunting for a new sponsor. Also tweaks the rules to let more entities, include private equity funds, sponsor asset management companies. Terms and conditions apply. Sebi enhances the disclosures for ESG by adding a business responsibility and sustainability report. Also allows mutual funds to invest in more ESG schemes by liberalizing the cap on that scheme that can be launched. Decks cleared for the merger between Zee Entertainment and Sony. Zee settles the insolvency dispute with IndusInd Bank, paving the way for the creation of a $10 billion media behemoth. Company law appellate tribunal upholds a 1,300 crore rupee penalty imposed on Google by the competition regulator and orders the company to pay up in 30 days. But the court strikes down some directions imposed by the regulator, including a mandate requiring Google to open up its Play Store and allow side loading of apps. Union government and the Delhi state government moved the Supreme Court over the 4,700 crore rupee arbitral dispute between Reliance Infra and Delhi Metro Corporation. Delhi High Court refuses to stay arbitral award and calls it a Tom and Jerry issue after learning that government is planning to amend the law to avoid the seizure of Delhi Metro assets. Lok Sabha passes the competition amendment bill amid ruckus from the opposition. The bill opposes the levy penalty on global turnover instead of domestic turnover in cases of violation. Also makes competition regulators nod must for deals above 2,000 crore rupees. Fresh trouble for Credit Suisse. Whistleblowers say Swiss bank aided wealthy Americans commit tax fraud, according to a U.S. Senate committee report. All 224 assembly constituencies in Karnataka go to polls on the 10th of May in a single phase. Results would be announced on the 13th. The elections are set to be a three-way race among BJP, Congress and the JDS. Let's begin with the day's trading action. Markets saw broad-based gains to end at the day's high. Nifty and Sensex ended over 0.5% in the green. However, the Lal Street fell for the fourth consecutive series for the first time in a year. The Adani Group stocks reversed Tuesday's losses and gained a market capitalization of 20,000 crore rupees today. 7 out of the 10 group stocks ended the day higher, with Adani Enterprises and Adani Ports soaring over 8%. This after the Adani Group refuted the Ken report on its pledged shares and issued a clarification on the status of these shares. The company said that it has fully prepaid margin-linked share-backed financing of a little over $2 billion. Speaking of Adani, the Sebi chairperson, Madhvi Puri Butch, refused to comment on the Adani-Hindenburg matter, calling it sub judice. She was addressing the media after a Sebi board meeting. Take a look.
Ms. Adani Hindenburg. Now, I don't know why all of you expect that we will say anything about it. Because in the first place, our standard answer is we never comment on entity-specific matters. On top of that, the matter is before the Supreme Court. We never comment on sub judice matters. So there is absolutely no question of our commenting on that.
And the Sebi chairperson also spoke about a slew of decisions taken by the board. Sebi has also taken decisions to safeguard mutual fund investors after recent scandals at Franklin Templeton and Axis Mutual Fund. It has amended its rules to make the board of asset management companies explicitly responsible for protecting investors. Now, the Sebi chairperson, Madhvi Puri Butch, said that there was no need of Abhimanyus in the mutual fund ecosystem. She was referring to a character from the Mahabharata who knew how to enter a battle formation but did not know the way out. Butch said the original sponsor of an AMC can voluntarily disassociate itself from the mutual fund without hunting for a new sponsor. Sebi also tweaked the rules to let more entities, including private equity funds, sponsor asset management companies. Terms and conditions apply, of course.
There were two things we promised them. This is the first, which is a lot of flexibility in terms of who are sponsors, eligible sponsors for mutual funds. More importantly, we are now bringing in a concept of self-sponsored AMCs, which means that when an AMC becomes large enough that in itself it is now eligible to sponsor another mutual fund, then there is no need for it to have a sponsor, and it can declare itself to be self-sponsored, and the erstwhile sponsor can disengage and exit without having to find another suitable sponsor to come in and step into its shoes. So we had said earlier that, in our market, we don't like Abhimanyus. Someone who comes in must have the ability to go out. Either you are double charging the unit holder, because if you are taking asset management fee to manage the asset, then why are you paying such large sums of money to the brokers for the research which you are supposed to be doing? The other is that when we examined some of this, we found that there was a distinct possibility, and I say this carefully, that there was a distinct possibility that the brokerage was being paid for reasons other than professional reasons. And therefore, and why was it not coming under anyone's radar? Because the board of the AMC was not looking at it, because it was not coming out of their kitty. The minute you bring it within the total expense ratio, automatically the board of the AMC will ask the question, why are you paying Mr. XYZ broker so much money?
And listed companies have been put on the clock with the market regulator mandating stricter disclosures. Rules have been tightened for asset management companies, and mutual funds get more flexibility to launch ESG schemes. Companies need to disclose material events within 30 minutes of a board meeting. For decisions taken outside the board meeting, companies must make the disclosure within 12 hours. That's not all. Top 100 listed companies need to clarify on market rumors from the list from the 1st of October. Top 250 companies need to make similar clarifications from April next year. This is a big change in disclosure rules for listed companies. Moving on, the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal has upheld the 1,300 crore rupee penalty imposed on Google by the Competition Commission of India. However, the court has struck down part of the CCI's order in what comes as a partial relief for Google. Ashmit Kumar gets us all the key contours from the NCAT hearing. Ashmit?
Well, just for reference, this was the CCI order passed in October of 2022, whereby CCI had slapped a penalty of 1,337 crore rupees on Google, alleging abuse of dominant market position by Google in the Android ecosystem. Now, what we understand is that this was the discussion before the Appellate Tribunal, and the Appellate Tribunal has passed a detailed order whereby, number one, it has upheld that penalty of 1,337 crore rupees on Google. This is a penalty that Google will have to cough up in a period of 30 days. Not just that, the NCLAT has held that Google is indeed abusing its dominant market position by requiring OEMs, by phone manufacturers, to pre-install Google's suite of apps. So that is a clear finding against Google. However, there is also marginal relief, partial relief coming in for Google on 4 counts. There were a total of 10 directions passed by the CCI. 4 specific directions against Google have been struck down by the Appellate Tribunal. What are these 4 directions? Well, there were directions passed with respect to Google allowing access to Play Store API. There was another direction for Google to allow uninstallation of pre-installed apps. There was also a direction for Google to allow other app stores on Play Store. And finally, a direction requiring Google to allow sideloading of apps by other app developers. All these 4 directions have been struck down by the NCLAT as a part of the CCI order. So certainly partial, marginal relief coming in for Google, but broadly the CCI order alleging abuse of dominant market position by Google by requiring phones to pre-install apps. That particular direction has been upheld, and so has the penalty of 1,337 crores. Back to you.
So some relief coming in there for Google, but the penalty has been upheld. Now, the centre and Delhi government have moved the Supreme Court against the Delhi High Court's order directing the Delhi Metro to pay 4,700 crore rupees in arbitral award dues to Reliance Infra. This after the Delhi High Court refused to impose a stay on the penalty and called this case a Tom and Jerry issue. This after government's plan to amend the law to avoid the seizure of Metro's assets. Zee Entertainment and IndusInd Bank have settled their dispute over dues. The two entities have informed the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal that a settlement in relation to their payment dispute has been entered into, paving the way for the Sony deal. Under the agreement, Zee has paid the first tranche of the settlement amount today. The second tranche will be paid to the bank within 7 days after the Sony merger or by the 30th of June, whichever comes first. That's not all. IndusInd also told the NCLT that it would withdraw its objection to Zee's merger with Sony. The Lok Sabha has passed the Competition Amendment Bill 2022 without a debate amid sloganeering from the opposition parties over the Adani issue. The bill proposes the levy penalty on global turnover instead of domestic turnover in cases of violations. As per the bill, deals with transaction value of more than 2,000 crore rupees will require the approval of the Competition Commission of India. The National Payments Corporation of India has clarified that customers will not have to pay for UPI transactions in the latest introduction of interchange fee. UPI users won't pay anything, whether it's a peer-to-peer or peer-to-merchant transaction. Take a look.
So one thing is very clear, that customer never pays for any payment transaction, right? Whether it's a peer-to-peer or peer-to-merchant. Always merchant as a user of the payment system pays the nominal reasonable charges for the payment system. So that's the first principle. The second point is the UPI for the bank account, using the bank account is already free with the government notification. And again, if there is a review, if there is a change, again, the government will have to decide on the next course on that.
The rate of interest that banks charge when they borrow funds from each other has shot up to 6.85% today. The interbank call rate was trading close to the repo rate till mid-March. However, it is now trading higher than the marginal standing facility rate, indicating tightening of liquidity in the system. Lata Venkatesh is here to explain why near-term yields are rising. Lata, over to you.
The interbank call rate is the rate at which banks borrow from one another for a day. And that normally very closely tracks the repo rate, 6.5%. Because if banks are not paying, you can go to the Reserve Bank and borrow from them. That's the 6.5% rate. But it is today traded at a high of 6.9 and the closing rate is 6.85. In fact, this yield has been as high as 6.75 from March 17th or thereabouts. That is from ever since the advance taxes were paid. Now, this is a bit of it is habitual. The yields go up towards March 31st. One, because liquidity moves out on March 15th, March 16th, advance tax. But more importantly, banks don't want to lend much towards March 31st because you're just finishing up accounts. You want to shore up the balance sheet. You don't want mark-to-markets at that time. So generally at that time, there is a slight rise in yield. But this time, the bigger story is not just that the call rate has gone up to 6.9 or 6.85. The near-term 1-month yields have also gone. If you take a CD, an SBI CD, or any of the other T-bills, Government of India T-bills which are maturing in a month, all those yields have also gone up by 25 basis points. And guess why? You all have got it right. Money is moving from liquid funds to debt funds with medium-term maturity because you are going to get a tax advantage. So what do the liquid funds guys do? They have to either get rid of their near-term paper. They don't want to get rid of their longer-term paper because those yields are still good. They want to get rid of their near-term paper, and that's why there's less demand for them. And they want to liquefy money and give it over to the debt mutual funds, which are buying longer-term paper or will buy. So this looks like it's a short-term problem. The 1-month yields going up, which is up to March 31st. But call rates on March 31st itself, people are worried that it would go even to 7% and beyond.
All right, Lata, many thanks for those details. On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, major distribution companies in Maharashtra are set to hike electricity tariff. How will it impact the consumers? A special report when we return. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on India Business Hour. Karnataka will go to polls on the 10th of May. All 224 assembly constituencies will vote in a single phase. The Election Commission said that the state has over 9 lakh first-time voters. That's not all. For the first time, a vote from home option will be available for people aged 80 and above. Karnataka looks set for a three-way fight among the BJP, Congress and the JDS. Results would be announced on the 13th of May. India's longest oil well fire, which occurred at Assam's Tinsukia district in 2020, is now identified to be caused due to cumulative human errors. A parliamentary committee report examining the safety of installations of PSU oil companies pointed out that Assam's oil fire disaster was not because of equipment failure, but due to human errors, and has recommended Oil India to take appropriate action against the contractor for recovering expenses of the entire incident. Nearly 20,000 doctors took to the streets in Rajasthan to protest against the Right to Health Act, which mandates all private and public hospitals offer emergency treatment without any prepayment. The act also says that the government will bear the cost of the treatments if the patient is not able to. However, protesters claim that the bill does not provide any clarity on the nature of emergencies or the process of reimbursements. Get ready to pay more for electricity in Maharashtra from the 1st of April, especially if you're a customer of the state-run distribution companies. Major distribution companies in Maharashtra have sought a hike in electricity tariff. A decision is due soon. Sandhya Gora finds out more about the kind of impact it would have on the consumers. Take a look.
Even though the last electricity tariff hike in Maharashtra was only 3 years ago, distribution companies operating in the state have written to Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission asking for another tariff hike. As per the Electricity Act, tariff hikes happen once every 5 years, but there is a provision of mid-term hike as well.
During last 2 years, there is increase in coal prices, and accordingly, the power purchase cost has been increased. The revenue gap, what we have achieved we have come across in last 2 years is around 600 crores. And in order to tie over this situation, this midterm tariff revision has been filed with MERC. We have proposed for around 10 to 15% of tariff hike.
But it's not just BEST. Other state-owned as well as private distribution companies have also filed similar petitions. This includes state-owned MSEDCL and private players like Tata Power and Adani Electricity.
We have submitted our petition. We have given all cost details which have been asked by MERC. We have definitely asked for some rationalization in tariff, because what we want is all DISCOM should compete on customer service and not on the tariff.
These petitions for a hike were filed few months ago. As per procedure, Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission conducted various meetings across the state to give a platform to various stakeholders before taking a decision. The meetings were concluded recently, and Commission officials told CNBC-TV18 that final order is being drafted and it will be out by 31st of March. The new tariff will be applicable from 1st April 2023. This will impact 7,50,000 consumers of Tata Power, 30 lakh consumers of Adani Electricity, 10,47,000 consumers of BEST, and 3 crore consumers of MSEDCL. State-owned MSEDCL has sought tariff hike of 14% for 2024 and 11% for 2025 to stay at par with the increased cost of power due to high coal prices and other factors making power purchase more expensive. Recently, Bihar Electricity Regulatory Commission announced a 24% tariff hike in the state. Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh have also sought similar tariff hikes.
This electricity tariff hike will be applicable on consumers of all the categories, including the farmers of the state. For Maharashtra farmers who are already seeking some relief on electricity bill front and have already bore huge losses due to crop damage, this will add to their financial woes. Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde told CNBC-TV18 that as of now, there's no plan to provide subsidies to the farmers, but if required, the state government can provide some concessions once the new electricity bills are generated. In Mumbai, this is Sandhya for CNBC-TV18.
And in international news, protests in Israel continue even after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he would halt his plans on the judicial overhaul until the parliament reconvenes. Protesters alleged that the measures proposed by the government would give the parliament the power to override Supreme Court decisions. They have vowed that rallies would continue until the government scraps the legal overhaul entirely. The U.S. Federal Reserve's top team was grilled by the U.S. Congress over the collapse of the SVB and Signature Bank. Fed's vice chair called the collapse of SVB Bank a textbook case of mismanagement. He also proposed stricter banking regulations, following which bank stocks turned negative. Here's that story.
The nation's top bank regulators on the hot seat following the recent collapse of Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank.
For over a year, regulators were saying to this bank, straighten up and fly right, and they never did a damn thing about it.
The risks were there, that the regulators were pointing them out, and the bank didn't take action, and they failed to do it.
Michael Barr, the vice chair for supervision at the Federal Reserve, says they're examining whether the Fed should have done more and vows accountability if there were any failures in its oversight of the banks. Senators also want federal regulators to strengthen banking rules.
Will you commit to using your authority to undo the rollbacks that your predecessor initiated and to strengthen the rules and supervision for banks with greater than $100 billion in assets?
Senators, I think you know I was a member of the board at that time and voted against those measures. And I certainly think it's appropriate for us to go back and review those actions in light of the recent episode and consider what changes.
This hearing comes after the Biden administration took unprecedented steps, including backing full deposits for the two banks so customers would not lose any money.
Well, I think we've done what we need to do executively. I feel confident things are settling out.
Regulators also reassured Americans that banks are safe.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee has released a report detailing whistleblower allegations against Credit Suisse. The report alleges that Credit Suisse is helping wealthy Americans to commit tax fraud for years. CNBC's Iman Javed spoke exclusively to two whistleblowers who are working with the U.S. government. They say that the bank helped American clients move money to other banks without reporting it. He gets us the story. Take a look.
The Senate Finance Committee is releasing at this hour a new report detailing whistleblower allegations against Credit Suisse, the century-old Zurich-based bank that collapsed and was rescued by the Swiss government and UBS earlier this month. Now, the report alleges that Credit Suisse has been helping American clients hide hundreds of millions of dollars from the IRS despite an agreement to cooperate with U.S. tax authorities a decade ago. Senate investigators tell CNBC they have found 25 American families who have secreted away as much as $700 million in the bank in recent years. I sat down exclusively with two former Credit Suisse bankers who served as key witnesses for the committee's investigation. CNBC has agreed to disguise the identities of the bankers in order to protect them because they fear retaliation from the bank. Our interview was conducted in the weeks before the bank failed.
So what secrets did you turn over to the Americans?
One specific about an American family that over years hid their money in Switzerland and did not comply with their taxes.
In 2014, Credit Suisse pled guilty to aiding and assisting U.S. taxpayers in filing false tax returns and agreed to pay a $2.6 billion penalty. At the time, the bank pledged to comply with American tax authorities in the future. But the Senate Finance Committee today says the Swiss bank didn't do that. Instead, the committee alleges the bank engaged in a long-running scheme to hide American assets by switching the nationalities of some U.S. taxpayers to other countries.
Now, we reached out to Credit Suisse, and a spokesperson there told us Credit Suisse does not tolerate tax evasion. In its core, the report describes legacy issues, some from a decade ago, and we have implemented extensive enhancements since then to root out individuals who seek to conceal assets from tax authorities. Now, to be clear, the two Swiss bankers we spoke with here do have a vested interest in what they're saying. Under U.S. law, whistleblowers to the IRS stand to receive between 15% and 30% of anything the U.S. government collects. Now, these two secret bankers stand to potentially make millions of dollars in that case, and in that case, U.S. taxpayers would potentially recover even more.
So that's the latest with what's happening at Credit Suisse. But with that, it is a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Many thanks for watching. The news continues right here on CNBC-TV18.